Let me tell you something about perfect marriages. They're like glass houses, beautiful to look at but one stone throw away from shattering into a million pieces. And I should know because I was living in one, or at least, that's what everyone thought. My husband, Alex, and I were the golden couple, living in our dream home with 2 cars in the driveway and smiles that never seemed to fade. To the outside world, we had it all. But beneath that gleaming surface, I was suffocating, craving something, anything, that felt real and raw. It all changed at a work conference in Vegas. That's where I met him, Jake, a guy who was the exact opposite of everything my life represented. He was adventurous, spontaneous, and had a wildness in his eyes that I couldn't resist. From the moment we talked, I knew I was playing with fire, but I couldn't help myself. The connection was electric, undeniable. We ended up spending the night talking, and one thing led to another. Before I knew it, I was caught up in the whirlwind of an affair. It felt like a breath of fresh air in my suffocating life, a secret escape that belonged only to me. But secrets have a way of making themselves known, don't they? Alex started to notice. Little things at first, late nights at work, my phone buzzing more than usual. He didn't say anything, but the air between us grew heavy with unasked questions and unsaid accusations. I could see the suspicion in his eyes, feel it in the way he'd watch me, but he never found any concrete evidence. Or so I thought. The day everything came crashing down started like any other. Alex was scrolling through our shared iPad when he stumbled upon a message I thought I had deleted, a message from Jake that left nothing to the imagination. I watched the color drain from Alex's face as he read it, the silent horror in his eyes turning into a storm. The confrontation that followed was explosive. Accusations flew, harsh words were exchanged, and the perfect image of our marriage shattered right there on our living room floor. Instead of demanding a divorce, Alex did something I never expected. He gave me an ultimatum, a chilling promise that he would make me regret what I had done, but not in the ways I feared. No, he was too clever for that. You'll see, he said with a coldness that made my blood run cold. I'll make sure you never forget the mistake you made. The gravity of my situation didn't fully hit me until later. Alex's words hung over me like a dark cloud, a constant reminder that the storm was far from over. I was trapped in a game of psychological warfare with the man I once promised to spend my life with, and I had no idea how to escape it. My affair, which had started as a thrilling escape, had turned into my biggest nightmare, and I was left wondering if there was any way out of the mess I had made. In a world where I once felt loved and secure, I now tread on a thin ice of paranoia and isolation. My husband's silent war against me had escalated far beyond my wildest fears, morphing my life into a living nightmare I couldn't wake up from. It started subtly, with my credit cards being declined and my invitations to social gatherings suddenly drying up. At first, I told myself it was a misunderstanding, a glitch in our finances, or perhaps I was just being paranoid. But deep down, I knew. This was his retaliation, his way of tightening the noose around my freedom, making me feel trapped in a life that no longer recognized me as its owner. Then came the disappearances. One morning, my grandmother's ring, the one item I cherished above all else, was gone. Vanished without a trace. Next, it was photos from our honeymoon, disappearing from the walls and albums as if they were mere figments of my imagination. Each loss was a silent scream from my husband, a reminder of the control he wielded over me, stripping away pieces of my identity and history with surgical precision. But nothing prepared me for the day my secret was dragged into the unforgiving light of public scrutiny. An anonymous email had circulated among our family and friends, detailing my affair with such accuracy it left no room for doubt or denial. The shame that followed was suffocating, a scarlet letter branded on my chest by the very person who vowed to protect me. My husband's face remained impassive amidst the storm, a perfect portrait of betrayal clothed in feigned ignorance. The legal maneuvers were the next blow, a punch that knocked the wind out of me. He had gone to the courts, not with divorce papers as one might expect, but with a petition to freeze our assets, citing my financial infidelity as cause. My access to our joint accounts, my lifeline, was severed with a stroke of a pen, leaving me financially paralyzed and at his mercy. As if to add insult to injury, my car was vandalized one night. The tires slashed, the paintwork keyed with vicious intent. There was no proof, no evidence to link him to the crime, but the message was clear as day. He was marking his territory, showing me that there was no aspect of my life he couldn't reach, no safe haven left for me. The assault on my personal life was brutal, but the attack on my professional life was the coup de grace. I arrived at work one day to find my emails deleted and my project sabotaged, my reputation in tatters. The demotion followed shortly after, a public reprimand for mistakes I hadn't made. My career, once a source of pride and independence, had been systematically dismantled, leaving me vulnerable and exposed. In the midst of this chaos, the most personal betrayal came to light. My clothes no longer fit, altered to hang loose on my frame, mocking me. My beauty products, replaced with damaging substitutes that left my skin irritated and my hair dull. It was a direct attack on my self-esteem, a cruel reminder that I was no longer the owner of my body or my self-worth. Sitting alone in the wreckage of my life, I couldn't help but wonder how I had arrived at this juncture. The love that once bound us had been weaponized, turning my husband into an adversary whose capacity for vengeance knew no bounds. Each day brought a new humiliation, a fresh wound, leaving me to navigate a labyrinth of despair with no end in sight. The man I had married, the life we had built together, had become unrecognizable, a twisted reflection of the vows we once exchanged. In his quest for revenge, he had reduced our marriage to a battlefield, and I, a casualty of a war one never chose to fight. Hey everyone, I hope you're enjoying this so far. If you do, please take a moment to hit that like button, it really helps me out and lets me know you appreciate the content. Also, if you haven't already, consider subscribing to the channel. Subscribing is a great way to stay updated with all the latest videos and to be part of our growing community. It's quick, it's free, and it ensures you won't miss out on any upcoming content. So go ahead, smash that like button and hit subscribe. Your support means a lot and keeps this channel going. Thanks for watching. Just when you think you've hit rock bottom, life hands you a shovel and tells you to keep digging. That's exactly where I found myself, standing in the wreckage of what used to be my life, my heart, and my home. My last hope, the man I thought could be my refuge, had turned his back on me. Jake, my lover, the person I'd turned to in my darkest hour, had been swayed by my husband's manipulations. The look in his eyes was one I'd come to know all too well, pity mixed with fear. He came to me, Jake confessed, his voice barely a whisper. He made it clear, I can't see you anymore, I'm sorry. Just like that, the last thread of hope I clung to was severed. I returned home, or at least tried to. The locks had been changed, my belongings piled outside like garbage, and there he was, my husband, standing at the window, watching the fallout of his revenge with a cold detachment. I tried to reason with him, my voice breaking as I pleaded for a semblance of mercy. Please, let's just end this. I'm sorry, truly sorry, I begged. But his response was as chilling as the winter air. You made your bed, was all he said before disappearing from view. There I was, homeless, heartbroken, and utterly defeated. But as I sifted through the remnants of my life scattered on the lawn, a familiar face emerged from the shadows. Sarah, a friend from my past, someone I hadn't seen in years, stood before me with a look of determination. I heard about what's been happening. I think I can help you, she said, extending her hand. It was a lifeline, one I grasped without hesitation, not just because I was desperate, but because her arrival felt like fate intervening. As we sat in a dimly lit coffee shop, Sarah revealed the reason for her sudden reappearance. She had a history with my husband, a piece of his past he'd gone to great lengths to bury. He's not the man you think he is, she warned, her voice heavy with a secret that soon unfolded. Turns out, my husband's vendetta wasn't just about betrayal, it was about control, something he'd exercised over someone very close to Sarah years ago. Armed with this new knowledge, a plan began to take shape. It was risky, potentially dangerous, but it was a chance to turn the tables, to fight back against the man who had made it his mission to destroy me. With each move, the stakes grew higher, but so did my resolve. Sarah and I worked in the shadows, uncovering evidence, rallying allies, and slowly but surely, we began to see cracks in my husband's armor. The battle between us became a chess game, each of us trying to outmaneuver the other. But with every move he made, I was one step ahead, thanks to Sarah's insight. It was a war of wits, a test of endurance, and for the first time since this nightmare began, I felt like I was winning. But as anyone who's ever played chess knows, the game isn't over until it's over. My husband, realizing he was losing ground, launched a counteroffensive that was personal and cruel. Yet, despite the escalating attacks, the fear that once paralyzed me began to fade, replaced by a fierce determination to reclaim my life and my dignity. This chapter in my life was far from over, but for the first time, I wasn't facing it alone. With Sarah by my side and the truth as my weapon, I was ready to fight back, to challenge the darkness with a light of my own making. The battle ahead would be fraught with challenges, but I was no longer the same woman who had watched her life crumble. I was stronger, braver, and, most importantly, I was not alone. The day it all came crashing down wasn't marked by thunderstorms or ominous clouds, it was just a regular Tuesday, sunny with a chance of devastation. I found myself in the eye of the storm, my life's drama unfolding for the world to see, in the last place I ever wanted to be, the center of attention at a local cafe, our private agony on public display. It started with a whisper, a murmur that rippled through the crowded room, gaining momentum until it reached a fever pitch. My husband, the mastermind of my undoing, stood at the opposite end, a cold, hard smile on his face as he began to unravel the tapestry of lies and secrets we had woven together. The audience, our friends, family, and even strangers, hung on every word, their gazes shifting between us, a spectacle they couldn't resist. But the knife that cut the deepest wasn't held by my husband, it was the betrayal of my closest friend, Anna. She stepped forward, her eyes avoiding mine, as she corroborated his version of events, adding fuel to the fire with her own grievances against me. The hurt from her betrayal was a physical pain, a blow that left me reeling and questioning every moment we had shared. How long had she been conspiring with him? How could I have been so blind? The final confrontation was a blur of accusations, pleas, and ultimatums. I stood my ground, demanding my freedom, my voice steady despite the chaos swirling inside me. That's when he revealed his trump card, a piece of information so damaging, so utterly destructive, it left me with no choice but to capitulate. The details don't matter now, what does is the outcome. I was defeated, not by the strength of his argument, but by the weight of my own choices. I left the cafe with nothing but the clothes on my back and a soul heavy with loss. My departure from the town was a quiet affair, unnoticed by those who had once been a part of my life. The drive away from everything I had known was a journey through a landscape as barren as my heart, each mile a step further from my past and closer to an uncertain future. Starting over wasn't just about finding a new place to live, it was about rebuilding myself from the ground up. The town I chose was small, unremarkable, a place where nobody knew my name or my story. But the scars of my past were not so easily left behind. They haunted my steps, a constant reminder of the life I had lost and the person I had been. Just when I thought I had reached the limits of my loneliness, fate intervened in the form of a familiar face from a chapter of my life I thought had been closed forever. It was Mike, an old friend from college, someone who had known me before my marriage, before my world had turned upside down. Seeing him was like glimpsing a sliver of sunlight through dark clouds, a reminder that even in our darkest moments, there are threads of hope, however fragile. Our encounter was brief, a chance meeting that opened the door to a conversation filled with memories of a simpler time. Mike offered me something I hadn't expected, understanding and a sense of belonging, a reminder that not all was lost. It was a small step, but in the vast desert of my new reality, it was a sign that perhaps, just perhaps, there was a path forward, one that might lead me out of the shadows and into the light. The moment of realization hit me like a cold wave, washing over the remnants of my past life with a clarity that was as painful as it was liberating. There I was, sitting in the quiet of a life I hardly recognized, the din of my past actions echoing in the silence. It was in this stillness that I understood the vicious cycle I had been a part of, a cycle of betrayal and revenge that had ensnared not just me but everyone around me. The cost of my actions, once dismissed as the price of seeking what I thought I deserved, now stood before me, a towering debt I could never repay. Acceptance is a bitter pill to swallow, especially when it's laced with the realization of one's own folly. I had danced on the edge of a precipice, blind to the precipitous fall that awaited. But as the dust settled and the adrenaline of my escape waned, I found myself facing a new dawn with a resolve that was born from the ashes of my former life. I vowed to rebuild, not in an attempt to reclaim what was lost, that was a ship that had long since sailed, but to forge something new from the lessons learned in the fire of my undoing. My story, once whispered in the corridors of my existence, became a cautionary tale, a somber melody that played in the background of the lives I had touched. The whispers grew into rumors, and the rumors into a narrative that served as a stark reminder of the price of infidelity and the dark shadow cast by revenge. It was a legacy I had never intended to leave, a mark on the world that was both a warning and a testament to the complexity of human emotions and the consequences of our choices. Years later, the ripples of my actions continued to make themselves known, manifesting in ways I could never have anticipated. Lives that had once intersected with mine, however briefly, were altered in courses subtle and profound, a butterfly effect born from the chaos of my making. It was a sobering reminder of the interconnectedness of our lives, of how deeply we can impact one another without ever realizing the full extent of our influence. Then came the final message from my husband, a cryptic note that arrived out of the blue, its contents a puzzle that left me pondering the depths of his intentions and the extent of his planning. Had his actions been a carefully orchestrated symphony, each note played with precision to lead to this moment? Or was it a final acknowledgement of the battle we had waged, a battle in which there were no winners, only survivors? The ambiguity of his words left me in a limbo of interpretation, a place where answers were as elusive as the shadows at dusk. In the quiet reflection that followed, I came face to face with the architect of my downfall, myself. My quest for excitement, for something more than the life I had been given, had led me down a path of destruction. It was a hard truth to accept, the acknowledgement that the chaos of my life was not merely a series of unfortunate events but the result of choices I had made, each step leading me further away from the person I thought I was. And so, I live in anonymity now, a shadow among shadows, my story a mere footnote in the lives of those who moved on. From my secluded vantage point, I hear of my husband's continued success, a reminder that life goes on, with or without us. In this solitude, I've found a peace of sorts, a quiet acceptance of the impermanence of all things and the understanding that we are but actors on a stage, playing our parts until the curtain falls. In the quiet aftermath of a life once lived in the fast lane, I found myself at a crossroads, staring down the path of redemption with a heart heavy with regret. It was in this solitude, this exile from the life I once knew, that I realized my story could serve as a beacon, a warning to others standing on the precipice of choices that could shatter their worlds as mine had been shattered. So, I started to write, pouring my heart and my mistakes onto the page with a raw honesty that left me exposed, but hopeful that my tale could spare even one soul from the agony of betrayal and the bitter taste of revenge. As the words flowed, a purpose began to crystallize, a mission to guide others through the murky waters of temptation and the consequences that follow. It was a purpose born from pain, a phoenix rising from the ashes of my own making, and it gave me a reason to face each day with a resolve I hadn't felt in years. I dedicated my life to helping others navigate the complexities of relationships, to recognize the signs of discontent, and to find constructive ways to address them before they spiraled into destruction. Then, as fate would have it, a turning point arrived, wrapped in an opportunity that forced me to confront the demons of my past head-on. An invitation to speak at a conference, to share my story with a room full of strangers, each grappling with their own battles. It was a chance at closure, but the thought of standing before them, laying bare my failures and my sins, was a daunting prospect that threatened the fragile peace I had built. The choice before me was clear yet complicated. To step into the light and expose the scars of my past in the hope of healing others, or to remain in the shadows, safe but stagnant. After much soul-searching, I chose the former, driven by a newfound conviction that my experiences, as harrowing as they were, could pave the way for healing, understanding, and perhaps even prevention for others. The conference was a crucible, a trial by fire that tested every ounce of my resolve. I stood before them, my voice steady but my hands trembling, and shared the journey of my downfall and the hard-earned lessons that came with it. The most poignant of these was forgiveness, especially the act of forgiving oneself. It was a lesson that had taken me years to learn, a realization that the path forward was paved with self-compassion and the understanding that we are all, at our core, fallible beings capable of change. In the aftermath of my confession, the reckoning came. Faces from my past, those I had hurt and those who had witnessed my fall, approached me with words of understanding, of hurt, and of tentative forgiveness. It was a moment of raw emotion, a blend of pain and healing that left me both drained and inexplicably whole. Among them was an offer, unexpected and laden with potential, a chance to collaborate on a project aimed at relationship healing, to use my story and my insights to help couples on the brink of collapse. It was an opportunity that came with its own set of challenges and conditions, a path that would once again place me in the public eye, under scrutiny and judgment. But it was also a chance to make a tangible difference, to turn the tide of my legacy from one of caution to one of hope. Accepting the offer was a leap of faith, a step onto a road less traveled that promised not redemption but the possibility of contribution, of making amends through action and intent. It was a decision that cemented my journey from the depths of despair to the precipice of a new beginning, one where the lessons of the past shaped the promise of the future. In a life punctuated by chaos, making the decision to embrace my future was like stepping into a storm, uncertain if I'd find shelter or be swept away. This choice wasn't made lightly, it came from a place of desperation, a realization that the only way out of the darkness was to walk through it, one step at a time. My journey towards redemption began not with fanfare, but with a quiet resolve, a whisper in the heart that spoke of the long road ahead. The path was anything but straight, it wound through landscapes of doubt and fear, each turn revealing challenges I hadn't anticipated. Yet, amidst these trials, there were moments of unexpected grace, glimpses of light during these times that I found support in the most unexpected places. Strangers became confidants, their own stories of struggle and triumph weaving into the tapestry of my journey, reminding me that none of us walk this path alone. Together, we built a new community, a collective of souls bound by the shared experience of rising from the ashes of our pasts. But just as hope began to take root, a setback loomed large on the horizon. A challenge that threatened to undo all the progress I had made, forcing me to confront the very demons I sought to escape. It was a test of everything I had learned, a moment that demanded reflection and a re-evaluation of my strategies and motivations. The temptation to retreat, to fall back into old patterns, was a siren call that I fought with every fiber of my being. The breakthrough, when it came, was as unexpected as it was profound. In facing my challenges head-on, I discovered a strength I didn't know I possessed. This milestone was more than just an achievement. It was a validation of my journey, a sign that redemption was not just a distant dream but a reality within my grasp. It was a reminder that the darkest nights often lead to the brightest dawns. Amidst this journey of self-discovery, a revelation came to light, shedding new understanding on the actions of my husband. It was a truth that cut deep, unraveling the narrative I had clung to and offering a new perspective on our shared history. This clarity was a double-edged sword, providing liberation from my past yet exposing the raw wounds that had yet to heal fully. In a twist of fate that bordered on poetic justice, I learned that my husband's downfall was not my doing but the result of actions taken by someone we both had underestimated. This unexpected act of revenge, while not my wish, served as a stark reminder of the intricate web of consequences spun from our choices. It was a moment that underscored the unpredictable nature of vengeance and the ways in which it can return to haunt us all. The dramatic conclusion of my story was not written in the stars, but in the scars that marked my soul, a testament to the destructive power of vengeance and the price of seeking retribution over understanding. As I stood amidst the ruins of what was and what could have been, I faced an irrevocable loss, a chasm in my life that could never be filled. Yet, even in this moment of profound sorrow, there was a sense of release. The chains that had bound me to my past were broken, not by the actions of others but by my own journey through the darkness. In the end, I was left to forge a path in a world irrevocably altered by my choices, a world where the shadows of yesterday lingered but no longer defined my way forward. This chapter, like those that came before, was a mosaic of pain and beauty, of loss and discovery. It was a reminder that the journey of redemption is not a destination but a continual process of becoming, of shedding the weight of our past to embrace the limitless potential of our. So, Elmwood, right? It's this little town that's kinda cute but, has its secrets. I've seen a lot here, but nothing quite like what happened with Michael and Sarah. You remember them, don't you? They were like the golden couple around here. Anyway, Michael, he's this regular guy, right? Works at the local bank, loves his little garden, and, man, he's crazy about Sarah. They've been together since high school, prom king and queen, the whole shebang. Their house? Picture perfect. 2 kids, a dog, and even those cheesy family photos on the wall. But here's where it gets messy. One day, Michael finds out Sarah has been seeing someone else. Yeah, you heard that right. Sarah, of all people. I still remember the look on Michael's face when he told me. It was like someone had just pulled the rug from under his feet. He's wandering around town, looking like a lost puppy. Can't focus at work, can't sleep. His heart's torn up, right? He's hurt, confused, and, honestly, a bit angry. Who wouldn't be? But there's also this look in his eyes, like he can't believe it. Like part of him still thinks he's gonna wake up from this bad dream. Sarah, she's keeping to herself. You can tell she knows she's messed up. No more of her usual chit-chat at the grocery store. It's like she's avoiding everyone. Maybe out of guilt, maybe out of shame. Who knows? Their kids, bless them, they're too young to get what's going on. They just wonder why mommy and daddy aren't laughing together like they used to. It's heartbreaking, really. And the affair? It's the talk of the town. Elmwood's not big, so word spreads like wildfire. You've got people taking sides, gossiping over fences, the usual drama. Some folks feel bad for Michael. Others are whispering about what might have driven Sarah, but no one really knows the whole story. Then, there's this twist. Michael, out of the blue, comes up with this idea. An open marriage. For a whole year. Sounds crazy, right? But he's serious. It's like he thinks this is some way to fix things, to understand why Sarah did what she did, to maybe even save their marriage. It's a wild idea. Some say it's brave. Others call it plain foolish. But there's something about the way Michael says it. It's like he's got this plan, something up his sleeve. He's not just rolling over and giving up. No, there's more to it. It's like he's playing chess while the rest of us are stuck playing checkers. So, that's how it starts. This whole year of whatever you want to call it. Freedom? Exploration? Desperation? It's hard to pin down. But one thing's for sure. Elmwood's never seen anything like it, and it's just the beginning. You see, Michael and Sarah, they're about to go on a journey. Not just outside their marriage, but inside themselves. And let me tell you, it's going to be one heck of a ride. So, Michael's come up with this wild idea, right? An open marriage for a whole year. I mean, who does that? But that's Michael for you, always thinking outside the box. He drops this bombshell, and everyone's jaws hit the floor. Even Sarah looks like she's seen a ghost. He lays it all out, cool as a cucumber. It's like he's thought about every angle. Let's just be free for a year, he says. See where it takes us. He thinks it'll give them both some perspective, maybe even heal some wounds. Sounds a bit like wishful thinking, but who am I to judge? Sarah, she's hesitant at first. You can see the wheels turning in her head. Is this a trap? Is he serious? But there's this glint in her eye, too. Maybe it's curiosity, maybe relief. Hard to tell with Sarah. She's always been a bit of an enigma. The whole town's buzzing about it. Have you heard about the Michaels? They whisper. An open marriage, can you believe it? Elmwood hasn't seen this kind of drama since the mayor's scandal a few years back. Some folks think they're nuts. Others are secretly envious, you can tell. For Michael, it's like he's stepping into a new world. He starts doing things he never did before. Joins a local band, starts painting, even signs up for salsa classes. Who knew he had it in him? He's rediscovering parts of himself he buried long ago. It's like watching a caterpillar turn into a butterfly, except with more guitar solos and less cocoon. And Sarah? She's taking it slow, dipping her toes into this newfound freedom. She's exploring, too, but in her own way. It's not just about other relationships for her. It's like she's on a quest to find something missing inside her. She even starts therapy, trying to untangle the mess in her head. Their kids are still in the dark, but they sense something's up. Why is Daddy playing the guitar? They ask. Why is Mommy smiling more? It's bittersweet, really. Michael and Sarah, they're living parallel lives now, worlds apart but under the same roof. It's a gamble, a high-stakes game where the heart's on the line. It's like they're walking a tightrope between rediscovery and disaster. But here's the kicker. Nobody knows how this is going to end. Will they find their way back to each other, or drift further apart? It's a story that's writing itself, one day at a time. So, that's where we are. Elmwood's got its very own real-life soap opera, and let me tell you, it's better than TV. Stay tuned, because something tells me there are more twists and turns coming in this story. Enjoy the story, like and subscribe. Let me tell you, Michael's on a whole new vibe. It's like he's been reborn or something. You remember how he used to be, right? Mr. Reliable, always there for his family, the steady hand. But now, it's like he's opened this door to a part of himself that's been hidden away for years. First off, he's got this newfound passion for music. Yeah, Michael, of all people. He's joined this local band. They're a bunch of guys who used to play in high school. They're not half bad, to be honest. Michael's strumming the guitar, and there's this light in his eyes that I haven't seen in years. It's like he's found a piece of himself that got lost in the whole husband and dad gig. And get this, he's painting now, too. I'm not talking doodles and stick figures, I mean actual, proper art. He's got this little studio set up in the garage, canvases and paints everywhere. Who knew he had it in him? It's like he's channeling all his feelings onto those canvases. But wait, there's more. Michael's also thrown himself into this community project. It's something about revamping the old park near the library. He's out there every weekend, shovel in hand, rallying volunteers, planting trees, fixing benches. The whole town's talking about it. Have you seen what Michael's doing at the park? It's like he's become Elmwood's local hero overnight. The change in him is remarkable. It's not just what he's doing, but how he's doing it. There's this energy, this zest for life that's infectious. You can't help but feel a bit inspired watching him. Sarah's watching all this, too. You can see she's surprised, maybe even a bit bewildered. The man she married, the one she thought she knew inside out, is full of surprises. It's like she's seeing him for the first time in years. Their kids are loving this new dad. Daddy's in a band. They brag to their friends. Daddy's making the park pretty. They're seeing a side of their father that's fun and spontaneous. It's a whole new dynamic in the house. So, this whole open marriage thing? It's turning out to be more than just a wild idea. It's a journey of rediscovery for Michael. He's not just finding new hobbies and interests, he's finding himself. And let me tell you, it's something to see. But as much as this is a story of Michael finding new parts of himself, it's also about what's happening between him and Sarah. With all these changes, it's like they're dancing around each other, trying to figure out the steps to a new tune. And trust me, it's a dance worth watching. Sarah's journey? It's a lot less about rediscovering lost passions like Michael, and more about facing some pretty tough realities. She's stepping out of the safety of her marriage, exploring new territories. But it's not just about new relationships or adventures, it's like she's looking for something she can't quite put her finger on. And here's the kicker, those therapy sessions. Sarah's been going to therapy, and it's more than just a chit-chat about feelings. It's deep, heavy stuff. She's digging into her past, unearthing all these emotions and reasons why she did what she did. It's not easy watching her go through it. She's confronting the shadows, the parts of herself she's not so proud of. You can see the toll it's taking on her. The once bubbly, outgoing Sarah is now more reflective, more introspective. She's quieter these days, carries this sense of, I don't know, like she's carrying a weight around. The affair, the therapy, the self-exploration. It's all painting a picture of a woman who's trying to understand her place in the world, her identity beyond just being a wife and a mother. It's like she's standing at a crossroads, trying to figure out which way to go. And the town? Well, Elmwood's still buzzing with gossip. Have you seen Sarah lately? She looks different, doesn't she? People notice the change, and they're curious, maybe a bit concerned too. Her relationship with Michael during all this? It's complicated. With him on his journey and her on hers, it's like they're orbiting each other, sometimes close, sometimes far. It's a dance, but a very different kind from before. The kids, they sense something's up with Mommy too. Why does Mommy look sad? They ask. It breaks your heart a little, seeing them trying to understand things way beyond their years. So, this chapter? It's about Sarah's journey through the murky waters of her choices, her attempts to understand herself better. It's not an easy path, but it's one she knows she has to walk. And as for the marriage? Well, let's just say it's still a question mark. With both of them on these personal journeys, it's anyone's guess where they'll end up. But one thing's for sure, it's going to be an interesting ride. We're nearing the end of this whole open marriage experiment. Michael and Sarah? They're at a crossroads, literally and figuratively. What a year it's been! Like a roller coaster of emotions, twists, and turns. This year for them, it's been wild. A journey, an exploration. Call it what you want, but it's shaken up everything they thought they knew about love, about each other, and about themselves. It's like they've been walking through a maze, each turn revealing something new. Michael, with his band gigs, art, and community work, has been on this path of rediscovery. He's like a new person, almost. He's found these pieces of himself that were lost in the routine of life. It's inspiring, to be honest. You can see it in the way he talks, the way he carries himself. There's a new confidence, a spark. Sarah, on the other hand, has had a more introspective journey. Therapy, self-reflection, facing the hard truths, it's been tough for her. She's been peeling back the layers, trying to get to the heart of why she did what she did. It's a deep dive into the soul, and it hasn't been easy. And here they are now, standing at this metaphorical crossroads. The year's almost up, and they've got to decide what's next. Do they go back to how things were? Is that even possible? Or do they take a different path, maybe one they haven't even seen yet? The town, still buzzing with gossip, is watching them like a hawk. What do you think will happen with the Michaels? Is the question on everyone's lips. Elmwood hasn't had this much excitement in ages. They're kids, they're just happy to see their parents finding themselves, but the uncertainty of what's next is like a cloud hovering over the family. Kids are smart, you know. They pick up on these things. This chapter, it's all about decisions, about facing the future. The year has been a mirror, reflecting everything, the good, the bad, the ugly. It's shown them what love can be, how it can change, and how sometimes, it reveals the very essence of who we are. So, what's next for Michael and Sarah? That's the million-dollar question. This crossroads they're at, it's more than just a decision about their marriage. It's about what they've learned, who they've become, and where they want to go from here. The air's thick with anticipation. Whatever choice they make, it's going to set the course for the rest of their lives. It's a pivotal moment, and let me tell you, everyone's holding their breath to see what happens next. This is where things get really interesting. Just when you think you've got a handle on this story, it throws you a curveball. Michael, our seemingly easygoing guy, drops a bombshell that turns everything on its head. Here's the twist. Michael knew about Sarah's affair all along. Yeah, you heard that right. He knew before he suggested this whole open marriage thing. Talk about a plot twist. It's like something out of a movie. Turns out, this open marriage proposal wasn't just some random idea. It was a plan, a strategy, meticulously thought out. Michael, he's smarter than he lets on. He wanted Sarah to face up to what she did, to really understand the impact of her actions. It's like he's been playing chess while the rest of us were playing checkers. Sarah, when she hears this, you can see the whole range of emotions playing across her face. Shock, disbelief, maybe even a bit of admiration. It's a lot to process. The man she thought she knew, the man she thought was reeling from her betrayal, had been steps ahead the whole time. And the town? Oh, the town's reaction is priceless. Did you hear about Michael? He knew all along. Elmwood hasn't had this much drama since, well, ever. It's all anyone can talk about at the grocery store, the post office, you name it. The kids, thankfully, are blissfully unaware of this new revelation. They're just going about their kid business, but you can't help but wonder how all this adult drama is going to affect them in the long run. This chapter, it's all about unmasking the truth, about the games people play in the name of love and hurt. Michael, with his grand plan, has forced everything out into the open. It's a bold move, but you've got to wonder, at what cost? Sarah's grappling with this new reality. It's one thing to be caught in an affair, but another to realize that your partner has been orchestrating this elaborate response. It's a complex mix of feelings. As for their marriage, this revelation throws everything into a new light. What does it mean for them now? It's like they're back at square one, but with all the cards laid out on the table. Michael's big revelation? It's like a grenade going off in the middle of their relationship. Everything's up in the air now, and trust. Well, that's become this super fragile thing, teetering on the edge. So, Michael's grand plan, his whole idea of forcing Sarah to confront her actions, it's out there. And it's messing with their heads, big time. The trust they had, which was already shaky, now it's like walking on thin ice. Every word, every look between them is loaded with a million unsaid things. Sarah, she's reeling. It's one thing to be guilty about an affair, but realizing that your partner has been playing this long game? That's a whole new level of complicated. She's hurt, confused, and yeah, maybe a little impressed by Michael's cunning. It's a tangled mess of emotions. And Michael, he's not sitting pretty either. Sure, his plan worked, but now he's got to deal with the fallout. Did he go too far? Was it worth it? It's like he's opened Pandora's box, and there's no closing it now. Elmwood, our little town, is still buzzing like a hive of bees. Can you believe what Michael did? What's going to happen to them now? It's the juiciest piece of gossip we've had in years, and no one's missing a chance to talk about it. They're kids, poor things, they're caught in the middle of this storm. They don't know the details, but kids are smart. They sense the tension, the undercurrents of something not quite right. It's tough on them, seeing their parents go through this. This chapter, it's all about navigating this new, shaky ground. Trust, manipulation, forgiveness, it's a complex web, and Michael and Sarah are right in the middle of it. They've got to figure out if there's a way through this labyrinth or if it's the end of the road for them. The thing is, it's not just about the affair or the open marriage anymore. It's about how well they really know each other, about what they're willing to forgive, what they can't forget. It's about looking at the person you've loved for years and wondering if you ever really knew them at all. This is where everything comes to a head, where all the illusions get shattered. It's the dramatic climax we've all been waiting for, and trust me, it doesn't disappoint. So, Sarah's betrayal, right? We thought we knew the whole story, but there's more, much more. Just when you think things can't get more twisted, the full extent of her affair comes out. And it's not pretty. It turns out, it wasn't just a fleeting mistake. It was deeper, longer, and way more serious than anyone, especially Michael, realized. This revelation, it hits like a ton of bricks. It's not just the affair itself. It's the lies, the deceit, the whole web of untruths Sarah had spun. Everything comes crashing down around her. The trust, the love, the life she had with Michael, it's all in jeopardy now. Michael, he's devastated. It's one thing to try to forgive a mistake, but this? It's a whole other level of betrayal. You can see the pain in his eyes, the sense of being utterly lost. He thought he knew his wife, but now? Now, he's not sure he ever did. And Sarah, she's watching her world crumble. Everything she held dear, her marriage, her family, her reputation in Elmwood, it's slipping through her fingers like sand. It's a stark moment of realization, seeing the consequences of her actions laid bare. The town's reaction is a mix of sympathy and shock. Poor Michael, they say. Who would have thought Sarah could do such a thing? Elmwood's never seen drama like this, not in all its years. The kids, bless their hearts, they're the real victims in all of this. Caught in the crossfire of their parents' crumbling marriage, they're trying to make sense of a world that's suddenly turned upside down. This chapter, it's about the harsh reality of actions and consequences. It's about the realization that sometimes, what we think is hidden in the dark will eventually come to light. And when it does, it can destroy everything we've built. Michael and Sarah, standing amidst the ruins of their once happy life, are forever changed. The journey they've been on, with all its twists and revelations, has left them both deeply scarred. It's a poignant ending to a tale of love, betrayal, and the complex tapestry of human relationships. As the dust settles, you can't help but wonder what the future holds for them, for their family. One thing's for sure, they'll never be the same. The plates clattered onto the kitchen table with a little more force than usual. John didn't even look up from his phone, just gave a mumbled, "Thanks, hun." I wanted to scream that I hadn't cooked frozen lasagna for him to stare at some stupid screen. But then again, what was the point? Seemed like the only time he really noticed me was if dinner was late or his favorite shirt wasn't ironed. The next day, I caught myself staring out the office window way too long. When I finally snapped out of it, a sticky note on my desk made me jump. Just a smiley face and, "Nice presentation today." Scrawled across it, I didn't even know who left it. Probably meant for someone else, but it made me flush a little. I hadn't felt like anyone noticed me in ages. Days melted into weeks. He was there, in the hallway, at the coffee machine. Always a smile, quick to ask how my day was. Ben, they called him. His flirting wasn't sleazy, it was playful, flattering. My cheeks burned a lot those weeks, and it wasn't just the extra coffee. He asked me to help with a project, something about staying late. My heart pounded in my throat as I muttered an excuse about needing to get home. Then he said the stupidest, most thrilling thing. "Maybe we could grab dinner first, work through it over food?" My traitorous mouth just said, "Okay," without even asking my brain. The little Thai place down the street was nothing fancy, but his arm brushed mine as we looked at the menu, and I swear, electricity zapped through me. Didn't even care that work talk turned into talking about old movies and embarrassing childhood stories. It was like, finally, someone saw me. Really saw me, not just the wife-shaped thing who did laundry and packed lunches. It's so late, I gasped when I checked my watch, the lie slipping out easy. John expects me home. Ben just grinned, paid the bill, and then, oh God, walked me to my car. Leaned in like he might kiss me, then just whispered, "Tomorrow?" I nodded like an idiot. And that was it, the moment everything started to slide off a cliff. The next morning, that feeling, the giddy, squirmy one, was back. I practically floated through the office, smiling too much at everyone. Even Janet, who always smells like cat food, got a good morning. From me, John never noticed a thing when I put effort into my clothes, but I bet Ben would. Stupid, shallow thought, but there it was. Lunchtime was agony. I kept replaying the night before in my head, the way Ben laughed at my dumb jokes, like I was actually funny. The split second where his hand lingered over mine when he passed me the hot sauce. The drive home, the guilt crushing me, the thrill fighting back just as hard. I'd barely managed to choke down a sandwich, the whole thing feeling like a waste of time when I could have been with him. That night, I lingered over getting ready. A little more eyeliner, lipstick instead of just gloss. John grunted something about needing the bathroom, and guilt washed over me again. But as I twisted my hair up, I caught sight of myself in the mirror. There was a spark in my eyes I hadn't seen in ages. I didn't feel like tired old me. I felt like, well, not a schoolgirl, but not a washed-up housewife either. The days blurred together. Ben and I were caught in this stupid dance. Lunch dates disguised as work meetings. Staying late for projects that never seemed to get done. My head ached from lying, my heart hammered every time he was near. Sleep was a joke. I'd toss and turn. John snoring beside me, images of Ben flashing through my head. It was exhausting, this double life I was leading. The changes weren't just about how I looked. I was bolder, snapped back at John when he made one of his snide little comments. Took charge of a project at work when I usually just hung back. It was like all the pieces of me that had been squashed flat were unfolding. Scary, messy, but somehow, good. Well, good and terrible all at once. And even with the sleepless nights and the constant fear of getting caught, I couldn't imagine stopping. Not yet. The lies got easier to tell. Ben and I were so in sync now, a look, a half-finished sentence, and we'd come up with some believable tale. Late reports. Surprise client dinners. It was almost a game, seeing how much we could get away with. John was none the wiser, the big lug. He thought I was just being extra dedicated to my job. Moron. The thing is, I did feel different. Like, not just about Ben. It was confidence, I guess. Knowing I had this secret, that I was desirable, it bled into everything else. Stupid, I know, but those moments with Ben, they made me feel alive in a way I hadn't in forever. Was it worth risking it all? Probably not, but I kept telling myself it was temporary. Just a little boost and then I'd go back to my life like normal. It was like I was two people. The loyal wife at home, and this other woman, bolder and brighter, when I was with him. Deleting text threads felt scummy. But even worse was this jittery feeling I had all the time, jumping every time my phone buzzed, making triple sure to clear my browser history on the shared computer. The sneaking around was getting old fast. One night, John looked up from his stupid sports game and actually asked me, "You okay?" "You seem distracted, heart pounding." I just shrugged it off, big project at work, stress. Not a total lie, but not the half of it either. Then it happened. We were getting drinks after a late meeting, and Ben brushed his leg against mine under the table. Nothing major, but I swear time froze. It was like this invisible bubble around us, and then his hand closed over mine for a fleeting second. The thrill of it was terrifying. And it was the moment I realized this wasn't just flirting anymore. This, whatever it was headed somewhere real bad. A part of me wanted to pull away, make up some excuse and leave. But a bigger part of me, a part one barely recognized anymore, didn't. That night, lying in bed next to John, his soft snoring filling the room, I stared at the ceiling. It wasn't just Ben that excited me, the Lord knows that was part of it. It was the feeling of danger, of playing with fire. The thrill of knowing that one wrong move and my carefully ordered little life would explode into a million pieces. And some sick, twisted part of me craved the destruction, longed to watch it all burn. Ben booked us this fancy hotel room overlooking the city for a strategic planning session. It was ridiculous. We could have done it in a broom closet for all the actual work that got done. The second we walked into that room, it was like something flipped inside me. The rush of it, being someplace we absolutely shouldn't be, the bed right there, that whole minibar full of expensive champagne that was practically screaming at us. It wasn't just the fancy setting, it was the feeling that all the rules were suspended, that I could shed that good wife persona and let this other, wilder woman take over. The energy was barely contained, crackling in the air between us. We didn't even talk, he just started kissing me, fierce and hungry like I'd never been kissed before. My body was practically buzzing, and the guilt gnawing at the edges of my mind was drowned out by pure, reckless abandon. In that moment, there wasn't John or my job or responsibilities. Just Ben, his hands on me, his mouth whispering all those things I'd only imagined. I craved him, the way every touch sent electricity through me, the way he looked at me like I was the only woman in the world. When it was over, I couldn't even bring myself to feel bad. Instead, there was this buzzing energy coursing through me, a sense that my life had just taken a dramatic, reckless turn. The next morning felt surreal. Driving home in my sensible skirt and blouse, part of me felt like I'd gotten away with the crime of the century. I wanted to shout it from the overpass. I'm having an affair, and it's glorious. And a sick, small part of me wanted to be caught, for it all to come crashing down around me. This desire, this longing for the disaster, it both scared and exhilarated me. Like I was playing chicken with my life, seeing how far I could push it before it all shattered. Maybe, subconsciously, I craved the fallout, a chance to break free, to burn the perfect little life I'd built to the ground. The lies were a constant thrum now. It wasn't just John. It was our friends, my coworkers. Everyone I saw, I felt like they could see the secret stamped across my forehead. Each encounter felt tainted, like I was a fraud. I started overcompensating, being overly affectionate with John, baking cookies for the neighbors like some 1950s housewife caricature brought to life. The more I tried to cover my tracks, the more obvious it became that something was deeply wrong. Ben and I weren't meeting just for lunch anymore. Weekends away turned into the occasional overnight trip, hidden in layers of fake invoices and carefully timed cover stories. It was exhausting, the constant hum of fear beneath everything, like I was walking a tightrope I knew was going to snap sooner or later. We were spiraling. The secrecy wasn't just a logistical challenge, it was fuel to our fire. There was a thrill in knowing every glance, every stolen touch, was a defiance of all the rules we'd once lived by. But as the lies got bolder, so did we. That first cautious touch under the table? It turned into lingering hand-holds during business lunches, stolen kisses in the deserted stairwell, nights in hotel rooms getting drunker and bolder with every stolen hour. Every risk, every forbidden moment, made the desire burn hotter. I didn't know if it was love, or lust, or something else entirely. All I knew was that I craved it, craved him with a desperation that terrified me. We couldn't seem to stop, even though my head kept screaming that it was only a matter of time before this bomb we'd built exploded, taking both our lives down with it. John was starting to get suspicious. It was in the little things. The way he looked at me a little too long, the casual question about my whereabouts that seemed a bit too pointed. I kept telling myself I was imagining it, but the fear nibbled at the edge of my mind constantly. Was it a forgotten lipstick smudge? That lingering smell of Ben's cologne after a late meeting, or maybe some deep down part of him just knew I wasn't the same person I used to be. Every time the phone rang, my heart leapt into my throat. Was it Ben, a friend who knew my secret, or worse, John confronting me with evidence I couldn't deny? One night, after another late work dinner that was really a night in some dingy motel room with Ben, I woke up screaming from a nightmare. I couldn't remember the specifics, just the overwhelming sense of being caught, of my whole world crashing down around me. John just rubbed my back sleepily, mumbling, "Bad dream, honey?" I just nodded, trying to regulate my breathing, wondering if the dreams were a warning. The guilt twisted inside me like a rusty knife. I'd justify it away, telling myself I deserved this happiness, that John had taken me for granted for years. But deep down, I knew I was lying to myself. When John smiled, that goofy, crooked smile I used to find endearing, I felt nothing but a stab of shame. The guilt wasn't just for John, it was for the person I'd become. The liar, the cheat. I didn't even recognize myself sometimes. I couldn't take my eyes off my phone. Each notification, a potential landmine. Was that Ben? Had he slipped up? Did John intercept something he shouldn't have? Every ringtone made me jump, and I started inventing elaborate excuses to disappear if my phone buzzed around John. It felt like I was living two lives. One a desperate juggling act of lies, the other a terrifying descent into a hell of my own making. Late one night, John's phone buzzed on the bedside table. He was already asleep, snoring softly. Curiosity, that dangerous, destructive kind, took over. I picked it up, heart pounding. The screen was unlocked. A single text from Sarah, a friend of ours. "Coffee tomorrow? Haven't seen you in forever." Innocuous, completely normal. Yet I stood there paralyzed, fear washing over me in waves. It was ridiculous. I knew I'd find nothing. But if I searched, would I be able to stop? Did I want to know? If I found proof, could I face the consequences? I dropped the phone like it was burning me. My head pounded, the room tilting crazily. The guilt threatened to drown me, the fear of vice closing around my chest. This, I realized, was the real hell. Not the act of cheating itself, but the constant dread, the knowledge that the whole house of cards I'd built could come crashing down any second. It wasn't a matter of if, but when. I started snapping at John over the dumbest things. Leaving his socks on the floor, forgetting to buy milk, breathing too loudly. It was horrible. Buddha became this awful, twisted justification. See, I told myself, he's neglectful, he doesn't care enough. That made it easier to slip away for an hour. A lunch date with Ben that stretched into a whole afternoon, tangled in the cheap sheets of another motel room. The close calls started happening more frequently. Once, John almost came home early and I barely had time to shove Ben's clothes into a drawer and fling myself into the shower, smelling like his cologne and cheap motel soap. Another time, he found a receipt crumpled in my jacket pocket. "Fancy dinner?" he asked, raising an eyebrow. I stammered something about a client meeting running late, but I could see the doubt flickering in his eyes. We were unraveling, and it was my fault. I tried to care about John, I really did. I'd force myself to cook him dinner, try to listen as he ranted about his awful boss, but it was impossible. When he touched me, my skin crawled. The guilt was suffocating, yet I couldn't make myself stop. Seeing Ben, feeling his hands on me, that was my lifeline, the only thing keeping me from drowning in this pit of lies I dug for myself. One Saturday morning, I deliberately picked a fight with John, something about him leaving the lawnmower out, I can't even remember. It was petty, but it flared into this whole argument and I stormed out the door, slamming it behind me. I didn't even hesitate, I dialed Ben, my voice shaking, "Can we meet?" "My place." "Now." John's confused face flashed into my mind as I sped towards home, a mix of fear and reckless determination coursing through me. It felt like a dam breaking inside, I didn't care about being subtle anymore, didn't care about anything except the thrill and terror of finally throwing caution to the wind. The affair had been about stolen moments, about secrets hidden in code words and lies disguised as business trips. But bringing Ben into my home, the place I built with John, that was a whole new level of betrayal. My hands were trembling as I unlocked the door, half expecting to find John there waiting, but the house was empty. A sick relief twisted through me as I dialed Ben again. Each ring felt like a hammer blow. Ben and we'd crossed a line, and there was no going back. As I heard his hello on the other end, part of me wanted to hang up, to rewind, to fix it all. But the other part, the reckless part that was getting louder with each passing day, didn't let me. It was too late, we were both too far gone. The days blurred into a haze of stolen moments with Ben and tense, guilt-ridden nights at home. I was a walking contradiction, laughing one minute, snapping the next for no real reason. John looked at me with this sad, confused expression, like he was trying to find the woman he married amidst this angry, jittery stranger. I hated what I was doing to him and hated myself more. But stopping felt impossible. Ben started getting demanding. He wasn't content with hurried hotel rooms or whispering sweet nothings into my voicemail anymore. Why can't we just be together? He'd whine. When are you going to leave him? I can't do this sneaking around thing anymore. The pressure was suffocating. I knew he was right, knew this fantasy couldn't last forever. But the idea of dismantling my life, hurting John, facing my friends and family, all the messy, ugly parts that came with blowing everything up, it paralyzed me. I lashed out, started picking fights with Ben. The thrill of danger had soured, turning into a constant, grinding anxiety instead. One night after a particularly bad argument, I drove around the city for hours, my mind a tangled mess of desperation and self-loathing. I finally pulled over at a dingy roadside bar, somewhere I'd never been before, somewhere no one would recognize me. I ended up drinking way too many tequila shots with the gruff bartender, pouring out my pathetic story to a man who probably heard variations of it 10 times a week. Leave him, he grunted matter-of-factly, like it was as easy as ordering another round. I wanted to scream at him that it wasn't that simple, but he was right. I was clinging to two versions of a life that were never meant to coexist. I stumbled out into the parking lot long past midnight, my head buzzing. As I fumbled for my keys, a terrifying sense of clarity washed over me. It wasn't a grand revelation, just a simple fact: this was unsustainable. Everything inside me was fracturing from the strain. The dam I'd been holding together with trembling fingers was about to burst, and when it did, the wreckage wouldn't just consume me, it would drown the people I loved as well. The question wasn't if it would end, but how. Ben, me, John, would one of us make a desperate move, or would the truth just come spilling out, a messy, uncontrollable flood that would destroy everything in its path? I squeezed my eyes shut, trying to push the image away, but it was too late. Fear and exhaustion rolled over me in waves, and I knew, with a bone-deep certainty, that I couldn't keep on like this. I woke up the next morning with a pounding head and the sickening knowledge that I'd hit my breaking point. Sneaking into my own house before dawn, I could hear John's soft snores from the bedroom. It was the last straw. He deserved better. Hell, I deserved better than this pathetic mess I'd created. Sleep was impossible. Every time I closed my eyes, images of John's hurt face flashed across my mind. There was no more hiding. I had to tell him, rip the bandage off and deal with the fallout, no matter how ugly it got. But dread settled over me like a suffocating blanket. How do you start a conversation like that? I paced the kitchen, running through a million different versions in my head. There was no good way to do this, no way to erase the pain I was about to cause. My eyes fell on a photo of us on our wedding day, smiles so bright they seemed impossible now. A sob caught in my throat. He never saw this coming, never thought his wife was capable of this level of betrayal. I was a walking disaster, a grenade of guilt and destruction, and John was about to get caught in the blast zone. My hands trembled as I reached for the phone. I had to talk to Ben first, warn him the game was over. When he answered, voice blurred with sleep, I took a deep breath. It's over. I'm telling John everything. Silence crackled on the line. Then, are you serious? You're kidding, right? Panic started to twist in my stomach. What if he wasn't going to let this go easily? What if he tried to convince me otherwise, or worse, tried to blackmail me? I'm deadly serious. I snapped, voice shaking but resolute. This has gone too far. It's done. There was another pause, then it choked, fine, followed by the click of him hanging up. My legs gave out, and I sank onto a kitchen chair, the phone still clutched in my sweaty hand. It was a small victory, but I was starting a war, and I didn't know if I was strong enough to survive it. I must have lost track of time, staring at the clock, each tick mocking me, delaying the inevitable. When John finally emerged from the bedroom, blinking against the morning light, the guilt crushed me. He looked so trusting, so utterly unaware of the bomb I was about to detonate in his life. My throat constricted, I needed to say it, get it over with, but the words felt like lead weights on my tongue. John, I choked out, we need